What if celebrity lives were regulated under Sharia? I'm Ajmal Masroor. I was born in Bangladesh and came to the UK in 1973 when I was just 2 years old. Since I was a boy, I've always admired the British ideals of democracy. And a few years ago, I stood as a candidate for the Liberal Democrats.
Okay, what about languages? How many of us speak multi-language? Many languages.
In this program, I want to explore an issue that provoked a huge reaction amongst Muslims and non-Muslims alike. And it all began from a most unlikely source.
There's a place for finding what would be a constructive accommodation with some aspects of Muslim law.
When the Archbishop of Canterbury last year said that Islamic law would become part and parcel of British law, there was public outcry.
Dr. Williams is expected to touch on the row about Sharia
says that the adoption of
And today, a year on, that public outrage has not gone away. Last weekend, there was a rally in Trafalgar Square against Sharia.
Sharia law and imposition of unequal rights in Britain. The other Saturday...
While people all over the country were getting angry at what the Archbishop had said, I was wondering if people knew more about Sharia, might they be a bit less hostile? There is already a debate amongst mainstream British Muslims. For some Muslims, living by Sharia is essential to their faith. But as British Muslims, we need to know what bits of Sharia we can apply here in our home in Britain. And that's not made any easier with the range of Sharia systems practiced. But there is nothing new in this debate. Throughout its history, Islam has embraced local customs and cultures and certain laws of the land to inform Sharia. And UK is a perfect place for some aspects of Sharia. Because it's often said that British law is more like Sharia than any other legal systems in the world.
The criticism of his comments
I can see how the Archbishop's comments could cause such an outcry. But I believe the pendulum against Sharia and against the Archbishop has swung too far. I know that many people think the Islamic law has draconian criminal punishments. In fact, it is the images of amputations, lashings, stonings, and even public beheadings that are most talked about when we use the word Sharia. Of course, I'm not campaigning for Sharia in criminal cases, nor am I calling for Britain to become an Islamic state. But there are parts of Islamic civil law, for example marriage and divorce, where what Sharia has to offer could be accommodated to UK law. And to make my case, I'm asking how celebrity lives would be regulated under Sharia civil law. Paul McCartney might have saved a few million under Sharia.
With regards to Paul's wealth, she would have no share in it.
Colleen McLaughlin might have loved that Sharia could have had her sign a prenup with Wayne Rooney.
She could make a condition to say she doesn't have to do the housework.
And material girl Madonna could have walked away from Guy Ritchie with all her money safe and sound.
Madonna's earnings are still only her own personal belonging.
For weeks we followed what happened to the lives of these celebrities. But what might have happened if Sharia law operated here, and if these celebrities had chosen to go to a Sharia court? Sharia is an Islamic code of conduct, both law and morality, developed over 1400 years, and based on the Quran, sayings of the Blessed Prophet Muhammad, and the opinions of the classical jurists.
Take care of everything that is around you. True custodians of this earth take care of everything around them.
It's particularly important for me to know about Sharia because I'm an imam.
If she betrays my trust,
I lead prayers at 4 mosques across London.
never forgive her.
I try to interpret Sharia in a modern way.
Excuse me, sir.
But first, what does Sharia mean to the rest of the population?
Can I ask you a quick question? I'm from the BBC.
No. Everyone is so busy running around. If I say the word Sharia to you, what does that mean for you?
Sharia? Arabic. Sharia.
Yeah.
No.
Middle East.
Don't know.
What's the first thing that comes in your mind?
The Archbishop of Canterbury.
Well, that's very interesting, isn't it? The head of the Church of England is now associated with Islam and Sharia.
Islamic law can be interpreted in different ways, and I make no apologies for reflecting a mainstream Islamic viewpoint. With that in mind, I've asked some legal and Islamic experts to help me in my exploration. My journey begins in London with prenuptial agreements. The big celebrity marriage of last year was between Colin McLaughlin and footballer Wayne Rooney. They didn't have any kind of prenuptial agreement as far as we know. There is no reason to think that their marriage will be anything but long and happy. By contrast, many Muslims do write conditions into their marriage contracts as a matter of course. I asked my first expert, Usama Hassan, a lecturer and imam, what he thought Colin and Wayne could have included if they had a Sharia-style marriage contract.
If they have wealth, they don't have to share it, for example. Under Sharia, husband and wife can maintain entirely separate incomes and property.
In fact, Islamic marriage contracts encourage the would-be wife to think about more than just money. If Colleen wanted to, she could make sure she never needs to get her hands dirty.
She could make a condition to say she doesn't have to do the housework, and that if her husband can afford it, he has to employ maids or servants or whatever, home helps, for example.
That Sharia can be used by women in this way may surprise many people, including Muslims. In Leicester, I met Ibrahim Mogra of the Muslim Council of Britain. He went even further in his interpretation of the way that Islam sees the role of women in marriage.
Sharia already has stated that it is not the duty of the wife to do the housework. And this is something that many people, including Muslims, are not aware of. That she is not responsible for the cooking in the house. She's not responsible for the cleaning in the house. She's also not responsible for looking after the needs of the children within the house.
What many people may not know is that there are some Sharia courts operating in Britain already. I've come to one in Birmingham at the Central Mosque. They deal mostly with women seeking a divorce. I wanted to meet Amra Bone, the only woman to sit on a Sharia bench in Britain today. She pointed out that another key advantage of Sharia prenuptial agreement is that it can be used to prevent a type of Islamic marriage that many modern women would oppose.
A woman can put a condition that I do not want to live in a polygamous marriage, for instance, or whatever, or he can also put conditions in that, and there's no problem with that.
So it's an open sheet, you can dictate anything you like.
As long as both parties agree to it.
So Sharia seems to offer a woman lots of options when it comes to a prenuptial agreement. But there are limits to what they can write into the contract.
If it was something that is contradictory to Sharia teachings, then that would be rejected from the outset. So if she were to say, part of our prenuptial agreement is that I will be allowed to have a boyfriend, that is unacceptable.